Well, hello there, it's Andy, your lonely libertarian, hopefully sovereign one day, citizen of Simi Valley, California. And I was passed along this from a friend. He told me to go to this AP website and pull up figures on government spending and debt. This is the US government, not California government. And these are the figures. Now, the total statutory public debt limit or public debt subject to the debt limit of January 22nd, $12,245,872,000,000. Statutory debt limit, $12,394,000,000. Total public debt outstanding, this is January 22nd, $12,302,465,000,000 and a few pennies somewhere in there. Now this is the operating balance. This is how much cash the U.S. Treasury had on January 22nd. $142,454,000,000. Now, this is the interest we paid. Fiscal year 2009, $365,000,000. $383,365,000,000. This is the total interest we paid in 2008. Interest rates were a little bit higher because half the year was before the big collapse. $451 billion, $154 million. Now this is the deficit for fiscal year 2009. $1,417,121,000,000. This is the deficit for fiscal year 2008. Remember, that was still Bush's last year. $454,798,000,000. So, good old Obama has spent almost 4 times what Bush spent in his last year in office. These are the receipts, the total fiscal receipts for 2009. $2,104,000,000, 104,613,000,000. That's $2,104,000,000,000. These are big numbers, guys. $613 million, give or take a few cents. And the total receipts for 2008 were actually $419 billion higher. So in 2009, the receipts to the government, its revenue, went down. That's because we're not paying as much income tax, because not as many people are working. Now, in total outlays, this is what we spend for fiscal year 2009, were $3,521,734,000,000. Total outlays in 2008, $2,978,000,000,000, $440 million. So, while we took in less money, we spent more money. We are basically going broke, guys. It's time to start thinking ahead. If I were you, just realize that the reason why this news came up, which I have right here, these are real figures from the Associated Press, is that they are discussing raising the debt ceiling. And they have a few days left to do it because they still have about $90 billion left to spend on the last debt ceiling. This is the country's made-up credit card. Our Congress has to vote on how big we will let our credit card balance go. Well, there's one little line at the end of this, and this is reported by the U.S. Treasury every year on September 30th, the end of the fiscal year. They report what the gold assets are of the Treasury. This is not the gold assets of the Federal Reserve, because that's a separate corporation. These are the gold assets that are held in the Treasury. Think of the gold that's sent from mining companies as royalty payments on the gold mining that they do on public lands. Think of what's been built up since 1933 when all the gold was confiscated and given to the Federal Reserve in the country's first bankruptcy. Remember, we have not gone bankrupt, or we're not going to be going bankrupt for the first time. We'll be going bankrupt for the second time. This is the second bankruptcy in the United States. Actually, if you consider 1870, when legal tender was created, or 1871, after the second Supreme Court, the one where Grant added 2 Republicans to the Supreme Court to get legal tender authorized in the Knox versus whatever. I'll remember my history, but Knox versus somebody. Well, I think it's Knox versus Lee. But anyways, that was they basically had to add more members of the Supreme Court in order to get legal tender authorized, which was the printing of fiat currency called United States notes, which were, at that time, the whole public debt of the country was $450 million, not even $1 billion. Well, and that almost caused a panic in 1873. We had almost a depression because everybody thought the money wasn't worth anything, and Grant had to back it by gold. Well, this is the total gold assets of the country, and you're not going to believe this, folks. It's only $11 billion of gold. That's it. It's right here. 11 billion, 41 million. That's how much gold we have on September 30th. So you take the price of it on September 30th and divide it into that number, and you will get how many ounces of gold the U.S. Treasury has. And it ain't much, folks. We are bankrupt. It's a pittance compared to what our debts are. It's what? A 10,000th? 1/10,000th of our total debt is what we have in gold. What's the rest of the country worth? If you add up all the value of all the buildings and public lands that the federal government owns, what's it worth? I hate to say it, but we are bankrupt. Totally bankrupt. And the sooner we move on to a new currency, the better it will be for all of us. We need to move on to a new currency backed by gold and silver. I'm buying gold and silver myself and putting away as much as I can, but I know because there's going to be transition time when the dollar collapses, and I'm going to need to have to run my business some gold and silver. So, folks, heed my warning. We are bankrupt. Don't believe what Ben Bernanke says, or the President Obama, or anybody in our Congress, or anybody in our government. We are bankrupt. They can keep on borrowing money if there are fools to lend to them, but soon there won't be any fools around. It'll just be us. So that's the end of this video.